And we're live. Hello and welcome to Maddie ALLin Live. I'm your host, Maddie ALLin, here with special guest Jesse the Pit Boss from Liquid Loans. Welcome.
Thank you, Maddie.
I'm really excited to have you here because I know the community is interested in learning more about what Liquid Loans is and what the benefits are proposed, going forward with the PulseChain and everything. So I'm so excited to have you here. I'm going to run the intro and then we can get down to the topics.
All right, great.
Awesome. Awesome. So let me start by asking you, what is your background with Hex and in the Hex community?
All right. So I am not an OG to Hex, right? But I did get into Hex at a pretty good price. I think it was 0.008 is when I found it. So pretty excited about that. I've been in crypto for a couple of years now, and I went down the path that a lot of people do when they first get into crypto, playing around on central exchanges because I didn't know better.
Sure.
Losing a lot of money, making a lot of money, losing a lot of money, just over and over, the endless cycle. And I found Hex. I'm proud to say I found Hex on my own, simply through scrubbing through lists of token projects and seeing a chart of Hex and saying, how is this not, how is this so far back on the chart? And Coin Market Cap, it's pretty far back on the chart, maybe 201 or 202 or something.
Yeah. So, okay. So you saw the gatekeeping.
Yeah. So that led me to do some further research as to what it was all about. And I saw, wow, this is just a straight up, certificate of deposit that just seems to work. This is great. Found some Richard Hart videos and was pretty excited. So I shifted my focus into staking, and long-term holding. And I learned, wow, this is way better than trading on exchanges and scamwicks and this sort of thing. What was it? Maybe 8 months ago, 7-8 months ago, Richard announced he was going to fork Ethereum and create his own blockchain to solve some of the fee problems and the stuck transaction and speed problems that Ethereum has. Immediately, I was hooked. I was like, well, why hasn't anybody done this before in the fashion that he was planning to do it, with all the tokens simply copied over? So I became a pretty avid member in the PulseChain community right at the beginning, right when the PulseChain Telegram was launched. And I found this passion of just onboarding people and trying to educate people the same way that I had been educated by the Hex community. I wanted to do the same thing for the up and coming Pulse community. Out of that, some friendships, some bonds were created. I do have a private channel that on Telegram that I run that's full of a lot of really smart people from the Hex and Pulse community. A lot of ideas have come out of there. One of those ideas has been, this project that we have coming up, and that's called Liquid Loans. So that's my story. That's how.
And where does your nickname come from, Jesse the Pit Boss?
So it's not as interesting as people would like to think. So,
well, give me the interesting version.
So So some, so a lot of times pit bosses are referred to as like the floor manager at like a casino, or maybe it could be like the guy at the barbecue pit at the barbecue restaurant who's doing all the cooking in the back. No, I had a pit bull.
Okay.
And for years and years, my name has always been just Pit B, and that always confused people. They had no idea what that meant. And somebody said, "Hey, just change it to Pit Boss," and people won't ever ask questions anymore. And I just went with it. So that
All
this
right,
is
and now we're asking. So
yeah.
awesome. Well, that's good to know. Yeah, because we all have our background stories for our names and origin stories and everything. And so I'm glad to hear that you have been involved in Hex long enough to see how amazing the community is and to be a part of it yourself now, becoming a leader in the PulseChain space. Now, if you were going to tell me what the elevator pitch was for Liquid Loans,
Mm-hmm.
could we start there?
Sure. So I think one of the biggest regrets that anybody has in crypto is selling as they watch the price continue to go up for the rest of all time, right? But you have to extract value at some point. And how do you do that? Because right now you have one option. Let's take it to Uniswap. Take your crypto to Uniswap and dump. Dump on yourself. Dump the price down for everybody else. Take a big slippage, from the automated market maker. And then also take a big tax hit, 20 to 40%. And it just doesn't sound very nice, right? Because as soon as you do that, the price continues to go up. And then you look back weeks, months, or years later, and you instantly regret it. So what Liquid Loans allows you to do is what's available in traditional finance: take an appreciating asset and simply collateralize it, do it at a safe level that makes it so that you never have to sell it, so that you never lose it, and extract value out of that in the form of a loan. And now go spend that loan however you would like to. So that's one aspect of Liquid Loans.
So
There's a
this
whole
is
nother.
what the ultra wealthy people do when they mess around with the real estate market, when they inflate asset prices, when they never have to sell. This is part of their tax strategy. Is that right? To borrow money and then to spend the borrowed money and to never have reportable income with which to have to pay taxes.
Yeah, because you don't typically pay taxes on loans. And when you're talking about real estate, you're right. So if you have a house that appreciates in price and now you're left with a choice, well, I could sell this house that's worth X amount of dollars and I'm going to get X amount of dollars, and then take that and go buy a second house, a different house. You're still, at the end of that, you're only left with one house. And you basically traded one house for another house. Okay. That's not how you collect real estate. That's not how the real estate moguls do it. No, you collect a house and you put it to work for you. You either turn it into an Airbnb or a rental, or you draw a loan out against it, a home equity line of credit of sorts. You put the first one to work for you and you take that money, you go buy your second one. Now you have two. Okay. And they both go up in value. And then you make enough money where you can pay back the first one. And now you do the same thing over and over and over as you collect houses along the way. You don't sell one appreciating asset just so you can go pick up another one, because then you're left with the same thing you started with. It doesn't make any sense.
It's better to be in the business of monetary creation than anything else.
Correct. Now, there's a whole nother side to liquid loans as well that we all know and love, and that's staking. So liquid loans doesn't collect fees. There's zero interest, there's zero repayment terms, but there is a fee to take a loan. But those fees go right back to the stakers of the loan token. Right. So we can get into the mechanics of that here in a bit, but
That'd be great.
There's three sides to liquid loans. There's the borrowing side. There's stability provider side, and then there's the staker side. All right. So 3 different mechanisms, and we'll get into how those work.
Perfect.
So I guess we'll just jump right into it. So let's say you've got some PulseCoin and you'd like to extract some value. Right now, like I said, your only option is take it to PulseSwap or Uniswap or AlphaSwap or whatever DEX that you prefer, and you dump it, and then you live with that regret. It certainly didn't help.
I sold Bitcoin at 8 cents instead of, waiting until it's 30 cents now or something, right? That's the famous tweet that we saw a while back. Like, people are filled with regret whenever they have to sell, or maybe they're selling and they don't have to, but they're just kind of trying to time the market instead of spending time in the market, right?
Right. Yeah. So imagine you have some PulseCoin and you say, well, I just would like some money. And you might want that money to invest in something else. Maybe you just need to buy some groceries. Maybe you want that new Lambo. Who knows? You can do whatever you want with it. So what the protocol allows you to do is take your PulseCoin and lock it up. Any amount that you would like. Okay. You have to have a minimum of $2,000, but you can lock up, say, $10,000, and mint yourself off of the value of that some stable coin. Now, this is how all stable coins work, by the way. True USD, USDC, Binance USD, all stable coins are backed by some sort of other asset, some sort of collateral. Sometimes that's fiat, sometimes that's another crypto.
Sometimes it's junk corporate bonds and like things that don't even exist, maybe in the case of Tether, but we're not going to FUD that right now. We're just going to recognize that there are lots of different forms of collateral that are used to back stable coins, and they still hold their peg in many cases.
Right. Now, this allows you to take PulseCoin and lock it up, and it serves as the collateral and the backing for the stablecoin that you mint. Now, you have to bring into the system a little bit more than you're about to mint, right? You can't bring less because now you're not backing the stablecoin. That doesn't make any sense. You can't bring equal because it would just be instant liquidation, like immediately as soon as you press the button and mint it. You have to bring in just a little bit more.
Or
and that threshold sits at 110% collateral level. Now, the system will actually encourage people through how much the fee costs to collateralize at safer levels than that. It's steering people well above 150%. But it doesn't prevent you from collateralizing at 110%. It needs at least 110% of what it mints to you. So just as an example, you can put in $110,000 worth of Pulse, mint yourself $100,000 for the stable coin. It's called USDL. And then go do whatever you want with that stable coin. Now, if the price appreciates in Pulse, you only ever have to bring back the stable coin that was minted to you if you wanted to. There's no repayment terms. So if you got $100,000 for the stable coin and the price of Pulse appreciates, that doesn't mean that you owe more stable coin. It only gave you 100,000. That's all that the loan is ever for, is 100,000. So the protocol only keeps locked $110,000, and that $110,000 is simply backing the value that's already been given to you. Any price appreciation above that, that's yours at any point. You can go in and you can click the withdraw button, or you can go in and you can click mint more. You can mint more stable coin, as the price appreciates. And maybe you entered the system with a lot more. Maybe you entered the system with $1 million and you took a $2,000 loan. That's fine. You've got a huge, huge gap to avoid any liquidation risk. But what happens if you do pay back a loan? It's quite simple. You bring back stablecoin, you put it back into your loan vault, and it burns itself. And it releases that 110% that it had kept locked away back in that value. Now, liquidation is a real risk. If the value of what you locked up, if you set it too low, if you set it at that 110% level and the value declines, yes, you can lose your Pulse coin. But here's the cool thing. You've already been given your stable coin on the front end. You've already got it. It's almost like a stop loss.
Yeah.
And if that happens to your account because you set your level low enough, those Pulse coin don't go to Uniswap. They don't go to an auction. They don't dump the price for everybody else. There's no cascading liquidations. Instead, they go to a group of stability providers. There's a large pool of stablecoin that has the same USDL that you minted for yourself. It's just a big giant pool. And in the event of any liquidations, PulseCoin from a liquidation goes to all the stability providers, gets spread across all of them, and they burn the same amount of stablecoin that you had already been minted. So essentially, they're paying your loan, and they're collecting your Pulse. So they get Pulse at a good price because the price dipped enough to liquidate that account, plus a 9-point-something% discount on top of that. But you already had your tax advantage loan on the front end, and you already have that as cash. If you wanted to, you could just buy right back in. But you didn't lose all your money. People need to realize this is not the same as leverage trading, like on one of the major exchanges where you can lose all your money. You have your money at the front end on this thing.
It sounds to me a lot like almost targeted liquidity works, right? Where you're kind of setting up like a buy wall or a sell wall, and that's what some of the participants are doing, and then other participants are coming in and saying, I'm willing to sell my Pulse if it's dropping to a certain amount, and they're just locking their value there. Can you explain how that's similar or different than targeted liquidity?
That's exactly what this thing is.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
It's essentially a automated market maker.
Yeah.
And on one side, we just relabeled them as the borrowers, and on the other side, we just relabeled them as the stability providers. And they have their buy and sell orders, just doing what they do. So it's a way to, so the part I explained to you, this is how you extract value without ever selling. And what happens when people don't sell? Well, then you have more buyers than sellers and the price only goes up. Okay. Now, there's a whole nother aspect to this. What is the incentive to being a stability provider? Well, we know that they'll be acquiring Pulse in any of the liquidation events while they burn some of that stable. But there's a much bigger play there. While you're in that pool, you're farming this thing called the loan token, and it's the native token of this project. That loan token, you collect.
Is that USDL or something else?
Nope, it's LOAN. It's called the loan token. And while you're a stability provider in that stability pool, you're generating loan token. You take that loan token and you take it over to the third pool. That pool is the staking pool. You lock it in there, and there's no time lock on it. It's just for however long you want to keep it in there. But you put your loan token into the staking pool, and now you earn the fees from the loans. You see, there's no repayment terms. There's no interest on any loan, But when you take a loan as a borrower, a small fee, 0.5%, and it does fluctuate all the way up to 5% at times, depending on the health of the system. But typically it's going to be 0.5%. 0.5% of the USDL that you mint will go straight to the stakers and get paid to the stakers. So that's how you incentivize the stability providers, by having them farm the loan token, which they then take and they stake, and now they're generating a recurring income of the fees from the loans. Here's what's interesting though. They're collecting USDL from the fees. We already know what USDL does for you. You can put USDL in the stable pool to earn more loan token, which you can then take back to the staking pool, and you can put it in there to earn more USDL. So you can go back and forth until your bag is as big as you'd like it to be. Then you can sit back, and then you can just start living off of the income of the USDL that you're earning. Now, that is very dependent on how many people are taking loans, how many stakers are in the pool, what's your percentage of the pool compared to everyone else's. This protocol does run on some other blockchains, and I can't speak to the price performance of what this one will do, but it is quite well. So on the Avalanche chain, the loan token appreciated in price 83x in the first week. Okay, that's massive gains. And the reason for that is everyone wanted to acquire it, because that's how you earn the fees. You have to have the loan token. You have to stake it, lock it up. Now you start collecting the fees. So there was a mad rush for people to get that. Price went up very, very fast. And the returns have been anywhere between 20 and 40% on people's money as they collect as they start collecting the fees. And who knows what it'll be on the PulseChain. But there's multiple things, right? So even if you didn't want to take a loan, maybe you just wanted to be a stability provider and earn yourself some additional Pulse coin. And then you get the bonus of, oh, you're going to get these loan tokens too. Now you can start earning some of the fees. So there's a lot of different things at play here.
Yeah. It seems like there's some, yield farming / duct taping of things that, go up.
Yeah.
Right. But that's kind of how these things are created. That it sounds like. Now, have you taken what works in other markets and that's what you're applying here?
So we looked at a lot of different stablecoin protocols and lending protocols. Stablecoin and lending, they really do go hand in hand in a lot of different protocols, because that's how most stablecoins are made. Locking up some form of collateral, making another. Anyway, we looked at dozens and dozens of them. They all have some sort of major flaws. Some of them will use the native token as the only thing you're allowed to collateralize. The native token of its own project. So you're taking a highly speculative asset from the same project you're trying to extract value in or out of. And that's the thing you have to collateralize. And that model really doesn't work very well. There's others that use the fee structure or the interest to try and keep the stablecoin stable. That typically doesn't work. There's rebasing. There's all sorts of different methods. But this protocol on the Ethereum chain back in May, a lot of the stable coins when Ethereum went way, way down, a lot of stable coins lost their peg by as much as 25% for a brief period of time. This protocol, as it sits on Ethereum right now, only lost 5% for a short period of time. There is
What's
arbitrage.
The age of USDL?
So USDL doesn't exist yet, right? But this is a fork of a protocol called Liquidity, which has been around for maybe a year now. There's been many forks of it. It's on Avalanche, running as a protocol called Teddy Cash. Some other blockchains also are running the same code, and it works very, very well across all the different blockchains.
What trading pairs does that have, or will that have?
So Liquid Loans will have the USDL, and it will have the loan token. Those are the two
And what
tokens.
does the USDL trade for?
You'll be able to trade it for anything. So take it to PulseSwap, swap it for Pulse, swap it for Shibu Inu, swap it for whatever you'd like to. So the beauty of automated market makers is you only need one token pairing.
But how do you know that there will be sufficient liquidity there for people to actually use the entire protocol that you're putting together? Right. So if I want to buy, a second DeLorean to like go back to the future, like while I'm going back to the present or something, right? Like then how would I use Liquid Loans once I lock up my Pulse and then I get my USDL? Who's going to buy that from me?
Who's going to buy the USDL from you? So the beauty of this protocol is it starts with 0 USDL, none. Every USDL that's ever made is minted by a borrower somewhere. Okay. So at the start, we're certainly not going to front run everybody and take a big loan and front run everybody and make a liquidity pool.
Good.
Trading pair, because there's none. It doesn't exist yet. When the protocol launches, people collateralize their Pulse. They mint their stablecoin. Now they do whatever they'd like to with the stablecoin. Now, there's certainly a lot of liquidity providers who will and already do have an interest in taking some of the stable straight to PulseSwap and locking it up or putting it in there and making trading pairs against everything else. Because the current stablecoins that are migrating over to PulseChain are not likely to function, not in the way that they're supposed to. So USDC, Tether, even DAI, TUSD,
because they'll have an uncertain monetary policy, whereas yours USDL will be backed by Pulse, which will
Well, it's actually quite simpler than that. So the thing that keeps them pegged to $1 will no longer be functioning correctly. Those protocols will be searching for Oracle calls from Ethereum, price feeds from Ethereum, and they're running on PulseChain. The dApps that make these things work, that do the liquidations of different assets to keep stablecoins stable, they're not running on the PulseChain. Right. So you may have something that's cloned over from an Ethereum, like a USDC or a Tether or something. And yeah, it's going to be there, but that doesn't mean it's going to be worth $1. It could have lost all of its regular functioning as soon as the chain goes live. And you're like, why is this USDC only worth a fraction of a penny? And how come the price isn't doing what it's supposed to do? It's because it doesn't hold its peg anymore. And it even says that in the user agreement of Circle, that in the event of a fork, they're going to use their admin keys and disable that contract, issue a new contract, and make you make you buy that, right? Because they can't, you can't just fork all those dollars and then expect that Circle is going to just reach in their pocket and say, here's a bunch of free money, billions of dollars, and have those redeemable for $1, right? They're cutting their business profits in half if they were to do that, right? So what we have here is a working stablecoin that's going to be available very soon after launch. After some initial price volatility, we get through some of that. We don't want to see any unnecessary liquidations, right? So we get through some of the first price dumpage of Pulse. Then we launch, and now we have a stable. Now we can pair that stable against Hex and everything else that we like. And it's just there and it's working.
And so we already talked about like kind of targeted liquidity and what the similarity is to this type of loan system. And then what about wrapped Ethereum? Like how is a wrapped token different than what you're launching?
So sure, you could. Some have even speculated, well, what if you just wrap a stablecoin from Ethereum and bring it over to PulseChain, and then you run the entire ecosystem of stablecoin
Well,
off of wrapped? People have speculated on that.
sure, I could see that because you are storing value that can be gone back to that has backing by $1 or whatever in a bank account that is approved by USDC by Circle. But
Well, here there's a couple
in a
reasons why.
sense, isn't USDL kind of like a wrapped pulse that's got a tiny little premium on it?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. So here's why you wouldn't want to do that with a different stablecoin for a couple reasons. One, now you're making PulseChain completely dependent on a different blockchain.
Yes,
Why would you? That's silly, right?
I
What
agree.
happens? What happens if Ethereum 2.0 goes through some funky stuff and something breaks or
There's
whatever the
negative
case is?
externalities.
Yeah, you want everything to be internal. You want it to be able to run by itself. How do you do that? Well, you introduce a native stablecoin internal to the blockchain that's just been created. Don't wrap something over. That's silly. That's from the other chain. Let them keep that one.
Does the tax world treat targeted liquidity or liquidity providing or wrapping of tokens differently than it does loans? Or is there still some regulatory uncertainty there?
So, okay, so going down the lines of regulations, people have heard that there are lending protocols in the centralized finance world that are being targeted by, in particular, the US government for various regulations. And it's very simple to why that's happening. And you kind of have to
Shakedown.
understand. No, it's not. They have to be regulated because the backing there's the backing of most of those other stables, such as USDT or USDC, is literally fiat dollars. So let me give you an example. True USD. Here's an example. True USD, TUSD. It's pretty easy to mint TUSD. You send fiat to the platform, they lock it up, they mint you TUSD, deposit it to your wallet address. Now you go do whatever you're gonna do with that cryptocurrency that's stable, and the dollar remains locked. Okay, pretty simple platform. But with Circle and Tether, it starts to get a little more complicated. It's still backed by a dollar, but there's a lot of things happening in the background with those dollars. And then now there's lending platforms, centralized lending platforms, that are allowing you to leverage those same dollars that are backed by fiat dollars. And since they're tied together, like wrappings, like you said, any negative things that happen in the leveraging world has a direct impact on fiat taxpayer dollars. And there's a lot of laws and regulations that go along with leveraging and collateralizing and stuff like that when it involves fiat. So many of those stablecoins and the lending platforms that use them must be regulated, has to be, because of the impact that it has on taxpayer dollars. In The DeFi world with algorithmic stablecoins, that's not the case. There's no direct tie between USDL and an actual dollar. There is a direct tie between USDL and PulseCoin, and USDL only is worth $1 because the code says that it needs to have equal backing between the two values, right? But there's no tie back to actually locking fiat into a bank somewhere and then that's supplying value to a stable coin. So the same regulations don't apply and they don't carry over.
Okay. I partially understand that. But at the core, yeah, I think we're into the zone of understanding where like we would only hope regulators would know what we're talking about, I guess. Because we are pushing the boundaries with like, you know, what is the difference between a loaning mechanism and a stability, you know, and a liquidity provider and somebody setting a stop loss order. And, you know, these are all kind of very technical things that maybe haven't really been fully regulated yet. But as you're saying, you expect the regulation to continue to kind of develop according to how it's worked in the past or according to what seems rational.
I think that protocols like this are so next gen.
Yeah.
That it would take 15 years before regulators even understood it to even start asking questions of, like, there's no funny business going on here. There's nothing to regulate. There's no taxpayer dollars. There's no banks. There's no counterparty. So
do you think if everybody could cheat the system like rich people do you think they would still let people cheat the system?
I don't think it's cheating the system.
Okay. So
I think you're taking a loan. So imagine if loans were taxed. Let's just brainstorm that for a second.
okay.
Imagine if you went to take a mortgage and the bank said, "Oh yeah, we'll give you a great mortgage, 3%." Oh, but the government's going to tax you 10% on top of that. So now your mortgage, your repayment is 13% on your mortgage. It would break the banks.
But that's not where the loophole is. The loophole is where you take the money that was loaned to you and you spend it on goods and services and say that that's not income. That's income to me.
Well, you can go get a loan from a bank today. You can go down to a payday lender or a bank, or you can go collateralize your car and the bank will take a lien out on your car. You can do the same with your house. You can get a home equity line of credit. And when that money shows up in your bank account, you do not put that on your taxes.
Yeah, that seems like a loophole for for having income and pretending like it's not income, right?
It's essentially using, maybe at the point of liquidation, if you ever lose one of those assets, that's where the tax would come.
Well, but
right?
so if all the rich people had to sell their houses in order to buy what they wanted, then the price of houses would be affordable for more people. And the monetary creation that's happening when they're locking up their value that they get to keep and creating more money on top of that that they get to spend without paying taxes, like that's monetary creation that again takes away from the scarcity of everybody else's dollars that they're working really hard for. So that's why in general I think that it's it is kind of like a privilege-based system where if everybody did it, then I mean, I think it would still work if everybody did it. I just think that maybe the government would act a little differently, but maybe not. Who knows?
Well, I think everybody has the ability to do it. Like there's I haven't heard of any place where you get a loan from a bank or from a friend or from anywhere where you're responsible for paying the taxes on that money. And this is no different. You take a loan, you lock up an asset. It's simply
Correct. Yeah.
because you already own the first thing. You already own the thing that you collateralized. And
I
you're
agree.
simply
I think this is a better system than exists. And I think it will give freedom of, you know, financial access to more people. And I think that that will be a good thing for people. And I almost just think that it will be so good that it'll probably come to a point where we'll be talking about this again in society. Like this idea of, you know, is it cool if everybody doesn't pay income tax because even the person who's living paycheck to paycheck is, you know, doing this type of loan thing, right? And that might be a
somebody,
cool future.
yeah, if the price appreciates forever, that's the interesting thing, right? We're at the very beginning of PulseChain. It's not even here yet, right? So the price is likely to appreciate a lot, just like it did with every other blockchain. The 14,000x for Ethereum, 6 million x for Bitcoin. You've got even Cardano might have done a 6 or an 800x. Like all these different blockchains did massive amounts of x. So in this protocol, it's likely you'll lock up some value into a vault, extract some value in the form of a stable coin, and the price of the pulse will continue to just go up and up and up and up and up. You could find yourself in a situation where you just never have to pay back. Like you don't even think about paying back your loan. Like it's not even a thought because your loan is so small and you have so much value locked into that vault. And you can take out any of that value at any point, except for the amount that you already minted.
It is a really clever way of monetary creation. I think that, yeah, that's on the cutting edge and really makes a whole lot of sense, both technically and philosophically. Yes, so that's why it's so interesting to me that, you know, this is coming along and you're explaining it here. I think is really helpful for people. Now,
let's just imagine if nobody. Let's just imagine if nobody ever used Uniswap or PulseSwap. It will still be used because we still have 40,000 some PRC20s that all the Shibu Inus and all the different random tokens that people will be trading in and out of, and they'll be using Pulse to trade in and out of them. But at the point of extracting value, what if nobody ever used a Uniswap fork? What if everybody used this? Let's just brainstorm. What would happen to the price when nobody sells? Instead, people.
oh, if this was the practical bridge, basically, that's
If
really
this was the
interesting.
practical way to get your money out when you wanted to get
Yeah.
money, the price would never dump. The price would go straight up
For Pulse.
for Pulse. So people, we dream and we laugh about 10,000x. This protocol
I don't laugh.
could
I smile.
absolutely make that happen a lot faster than people think.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, because it becomes kind of like a circular, reflexive, positive feedback loop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because people are because you're really expanding that liquidity basically, and you're allowing people to extract value that is unlikely to dump because how are you going to dump it? And all along, if you have major players in Pulse, you're going to end up incentivizing them to not let the price dump 99% because they don't want to get liquidated. So if you have a bunch of Pulse whales and Pulse sharks and dolphins who are all agreeing that, collateralizing whatever 100%, however many 100%, is going to allow them to survive a 90% dip, then they're going to work really hard to buy all those tokens before it goes below 90%. You could almost even like set a buy wall there to where you could stop it unless bigger whales are playing games. So that's what I wanted to talk about next, if you don't mind, would be the topic of scamwicks it seems like it would be in the crypto news if the crypto news was telling the truth. And if I paid attention to the crypto news that lies all the time, then maybe I would know if it was in there or not. But we saw Bitcoin scamwick down below 10,000 here in the past couple of days.
Yep.
We also saw a major pump in the hex price in one candle today that I did a little block exploration on. What can you tell me about how? So we'll start a little bit tangentially from there and like bring it back. So do you have admin keys on your contract?
No, 0 admin keys. It's completely immutable. We can't change the code if we wanted to.
And how about the Oracle though?
So the great thing about good oracles is that they run through consensus. So very much like our own validators will run on the PulseChain. There's consensus mechanisms. Many computers that are verifying the price, and as they all verify accurate prices, they all get paid, for doing that work. So that's how most oracles function. And then in our code, we have we'll be running from multiple different oracles, in case one of them has some sort of hiccup or whatever. We get that price call from multiple places. So even internally inside of this code, it's verifying across multiple different oracles. Does that make sense? So we have redundancies built in. We're not. So
what you're saying is
one service.
You have mechanisms built in to make it harder to game the system.
Correct.
Because you would have to dump the price on multiple, let's say, exchanges or multiple pools. And those pools might be so deep that it would be harder for you to do that. And I bet that there would be a way to like check that almost, to like have an internal check to be able to see like what's the value of scam wicking to the system right now? Like how much value could you extract? And then making sure that those pools are deep enough.
Well, here's a couple interesting parts of the protocol as well.
Sure.
No liquidations are automatic. So somebody has to press that button. And that same person.
So how's that not functioning like an admin key then?
No. Here's what I mean. It's a community member. It could be you. So on the dApp, you get to see what all the different collateral levels are on all the different open loans. And when one of those loans falls under 110% collateral level, you as a community member, just like we do in Hex with we can go in and sign on somebody's stake and put them into good accounting. So similar here, right? You can see an account that falls under 110%, and you could say, well, that account needs to be liquidated. And the system opens up that account for that button to work. And you click that button and bots can't even do it. Initially, people may eventually have workarounds for that, right? But maybe you have to do a quick CAPTCHA code to prove that you're a human to even trigger a liquidation on that account that is eligible for liquidation because the value of it is too close to the value that it minted to that person. So it's all run by the community. The community runs all the liquidations that have to occur. Scamwicks. So Scamwix is an interesting topic. So in this protocol, unless a unless a whale has a lion's share of the stability pool and is willing to dump the price on themselves really, really hard and lose a lot of their value to try and accumulate some PulseCoin, and they're not going to be able to do that with a bot, as I just explained. It's just kind of silly to dump the price on yourself and get your, burn your stable coin to acquire some PulseCoin at a really, really reduced price. What are you going to do with that PulseCoin once you get it?
Sell it to the people you just wrecked?
Are you going to go dump it on Uniswap and dump it even further? Right? It's already at a reduced price. That whale would take it to Uniswap and dump it even more.
Maybe I get some USDL out after I stole people's bags.
Right. So, but in this protocol, when liquidations happen, those PulseCoin don't go to one person. They go to all the stability providers.
Okay.
There'll be thousands.
That's probably important.
Right. So there may be 1 or 2 or 3 accounts that are really close to liquidation level.
Yeah.
And when those get liquidated, the pulse from those people already got their stable coin on the front end. Okay. They're already driving their Lambo with their, with their funds or whatever they're doing. Right. But their pulse coin gets distributed to the entire community of stability providers, not just one person. It gets spread across the entire pool.
Okay, yeah. So it's much easier for the system to prevent bad actors from taking over because they would have that weakness of another whale could come in and collect their lunch whenever they're just trying to dump the price and basically have access to the liquidity pool at a reduced price.
Right. And one more point I'll make on Scamwix. You see a lot of them on exchanges, like all the time on exchanges. Not so frequent that you see them in DeFi. And why is that? Well, none of the transactions inside of any of those exchanges are done on blockchain. So they simply run their code and they hold the chips, right? And they're allowing people to trade, buy and sell and buy and sell. And we have no idea what any of their code is doing. And we can't see any of the actual transactions on the blockchain. So in the case of Binance the other day, when they wicked down to $8,500, and then later they came back and said, oops, that was an algorithmic error. Was that an error? Nobody has any idea. Those weren't actual trades that were happening that made the price dump like that. It literally could have been somebody in the back office hitting a button, running a line of code to make that happen and steal everyone's money. And we have no idea because none of it's on blockchain. So this sort of thing happens all of the time on these exchanges because nobody regulates them. Nobody knows what their code looks like. It doesn't happen very often on Etherscan. Right? You go to Etherscan or any blockchain explorer, and it doesn't happen because it's not as easy to do.
Having a bad oracle is even worse than having an admin key because to exploit an admin key, you have to have access to the admin, but to exploit a poor oracle, all you have to do is be a whale.
Right.
So I'm glad I'm glad that the system that you've designed has the opportunity for so many people to benefit, not just the whale who is creating the liquidity pool, who would benefit from the price of Pulse going down and temporarily or whatever. It sounds like there's much less room for Scamwix than elsewhere, which means the Scamwix activity may be elsewhere. Although, what kind of testing have you done, if at all, with this type of stuff?
Yeah,
run any adversarial or kind of like have workflows of how people could attack the system?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a fork of the excuse me, the Liquidity protocol over on Ethereum chain. It's been through some severe market downturns, come out full steam ahead on the other side. It has been through some economic studies. It's been through multiple audits, and it simply won't break. And there's actually very few liquidations. The system is steering people towards safe collateral levels of at least 150%. But what you tend to see is most people collateralize around 300%. It's really hard to scam wick down that far to liquidate people when people are averaging around 300% collateral level, right? That's really, really significant. So it's working really, really good on Ethereum. We think it's also going to work very, very well on the PulseChain.
Well, yeah, again, like if I'm a whale and I set a buy order to make sure that my loan does not get liquidated, right? It would take a certain amount of economic energy of dumping to eat up my buy wall, which then gives me some assurance and some time and some whatever, some flexibility to have a little bit more confidence, I would say, in a certain collateralization level that would be not only safe, but that I would be protecting myself with.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like it's almost like multiple layers of liquidity protecting itself.
Right. We also have to remember a large percentage of PulseCoin is not you or me with it, or the listeners here, right? There is.
Hey, I heard that OA listens to my YouTube channel. I'm just saying.
So the biggest whales of them all have an interest in keeping the price positive.
Sure.
Right. One of the reasons why one of the reasons why you want in this sort of protocol, you want to use the native coin of the blockchain. There's a number of reasons for that.
I agree.
We wouldn't want to use some weird token project that might or might not have admin keys. They might have some inflationary mechanism or deflationary mechanism, some sort of weird tokenomics that they're running, and that be the token that is the collateral backing a stablecoin. It just doesn't make sense.
I agree. You want the common denominator of the system.
You want the common denominator of all of them, which tends to be the most stable. It still appreciates, but the most predictable, stable asset on the entire chain. And that's why you have to use the native coin. People have begged us. People are begging us to use Hex. Well, when can Hex be available? Well, it's not out of the question. There's a lot of economic study we have to do to determine, well, how does that impact the stakers? Certainly, it would reduce sell pressure, right? When people shave off their interest after their stake ends, and instead of going straight to Uniswap with it, they go straight to collateralize it, and they get a stable coin off of that, and now they go buy more Hex with it. Heck, people are going to do that with this protocol. People are going to collateralize their Pulse, get some stablecoin, and go straight to buy more Hex. But before we give a definitive yes or a no, we just have to do more studying as to the impacts of Hex.
It's hard to compete with the APY of Hex, and I think if you get too circular, then it spins out to the point where, I would disagree with your statement that it's unbreakable, but that it sounds like it's better than a lot of stuff that hasn't broken is how I would put it.
Right.
And so there's always like, there are always unforeseen things that could happen, or edge cases, right? As Richard or anybody would say. Although, again, it sounds like, you're thinking through things, you have a high level of understanding. And I mean, I find all this liquidity stuff and monetary creation and the cutting edge of crypto, I find it to be extremely interesting. That's why I'm so happy to be having this conversation with you.
Yeah, people have to look at this protocol. For the people who want to borrow, well, you can call it a lending platform. For the people who need a stablecoin, which is all of us, you can call this a stablecoin factory. For the people who like to stake, well, guess what? It's a staking platform where you can earn USDL so that you can go buy some more Hex if you'd like, or some more Pulse if you'd like. This protocol, in the simplest form, is the algorithmic stablecoin protocol that allows staking to earn the fees.
Well, it sounds like, so here's a question. What do you think the primary trading pair is going to be with USDL? Like the largest liquidity pool with that?
By and large, it's probably going to be Pulse.
On one side, but what about on the other side? Because this is effectively like going to be a bridge, possibly, is one
I think
way you
what you'll see
speculated on
on
it.
Pulse Swap is you'll find a liquidity pool with USDL and with Pulse, and you'll probably find that a lot of Pulse is being drained out of that pool, and the price is very fast ratcheting up.
I almost wonder if it's going to be ETH or if it's going to be P Hex, because like you said, if people
Hex is another one. Hex is
if people buy P Hex and with their USDL, and then buy more Pulse, and then buy and then like borrow more USDL, and then
people can borrow
buy more Hex, and
people can borrow against their Pulse, get USDL, and go buy some Hex on PulseChain, P Hex,
and then Hex appreciates. Now what?
Right.
Yeah.
So, or people are earning the fees from the loans, that recurring income of USDL, and what are they buying? Well, they're probably buying Hex with it. Or they're buying more Pulse. And then what do they do with that Pulse? Do they just hold on to it in their wallet? Or do they extract more value because they put it on the front end of this thing again? There's a lot of things that you can do.
But at the end of the day, it's going to be the demand of money coming in from the fiat system, where people are cashing out, wherever the real bridge is, and the demand for Pulse are probably going to be the two things that provide the stability that's needed for the loan, which seems well collateralized in this system. So like you say, as PulseChain adoption increases and potential price increases in Pulse, then that will give a really strong use case for the rest of this, especially when the rest of the stablecoin system is crippled by its own redundancy, LOL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we do have a white paper.
It's beautiful.
This can be, and it's actually a really easy read. Some people read this every single night with a big smile on their face.
Warm glass of milk and counting sheep.
Usually people get to about page 10 and the light bulb goes off and they go, oh, wow. The Pulse never gets sold ever in this protocol.
In the sense that a liquidity provider who has impermanent loss that's permanent can be buying something, or like you said, a stop loss order. What's the other side of that? Whoever's buying something that dips, there's so I agree with that statement, like at face value, but I think at a deeper level, it's there's a big difference between people doing market order buys and sells and targeted liquidity or liquidity pool buying and selling, right? Because that has a time element. It you're giving up control in a way, and so that's kind of an interesting point. So like people who are taking loans have to remember, like, you're specifying a sell price, and
you absolutely
when
are.
it dips, you're not going to be able to buy the dip because
But there's something
you're
I didn't
selling
mention.
at that point.
You
Unless,
can top up. You can top up at any point. You can
okay,
in the protocol, your collateral that you put in first off, your collateral doesn't have to be your whole bag of Pulse. You
so
can
it's
have $1
almost,
million worth of Pulse. You don't have to put $1 million in. If you want a $2,000 loan, you put $2,200 into the protocol.
okay.
Okay. Or more than that if you don't want to lose that $2,200. Put in $4,000 worth of Pulse. Take a $2,000 loan, and you'll likely be just fine. Okay. But if you're looking at your vault, your loan vault, and you say, looks like we're in a bear market, I'll either let it hit my stop loss. You can call it that if you like. Or you could say, I think I'll top up. I'll put some more Pulse in there. Put some more Pulse coin in there so you can avoid liquidation. You can do that at any point. You can withdraw Pulse. You can put Pulse in. You can mint more stable off of your Pulse that's in there. You can do anything you want.
Yeah, and you could place a, I guess it would be a limit order for Pulse itself to help support the price, so that doesn't get hit as well. And so there's gonna be a lot of ways for people, I think, to be protecting the price in this system where it's letting you use some of that value, which is, yeah, it's a very interesting system.
Yep, we think so. And people can go to our Telegram, liquid loans, t.me/liquid loans. They can have all their questions answered. We have people in there all day long answering questions. Community members have even stepped up and now they're answering questions. The voice chat's open several times a day, it seems. People chit-chatting in there and game theorying this and answering questions. Plus, you can find the white paper. You can find our videos, Easter eggs that come out. They all show up in there first. Right? There's a lot of neat things that are happening with this protocol. I'll say no promises, no expectations of work of others. Okay, all that.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
But we are trying to, if delegation is a possibility in one's vault without slashing of the initial collateral, then we will make that happen if it is at all possible, like delegation to a validator node. Right. So just imagine if you throw in some collateral and you earn delegation rewards on top of that while it's sitting in there. Okay. So we're working through that, if that's even a possibility at all. We're trying. On other blockchains, it is. But some other blockchains, such as Cardano, the way they run is a little bit different than how PulseChain and Ethereum and such run. So we can't say that it'll work on PulseChain. There is some excitement in the real estate industry. There are some big real estate moguls who happen to be in the chat, the Telegram chat, who are interested in bridging the gaps between real estate and DeFi, and potentially even cutting out completely the middleman, the bank, altogether. Right? Imagine if you could collateralize your Pulse, take your stablecoin, and just buy a house with it directly. Okay, these are the ways some of these guys are thinking. We think that there's really big things for a product like this. You've always been able to collateralize your house and your car and the assets in the bank and your stocks. And it hasn't been until recently. First off, DeFi is only a few years old. But now it's like, wow,
well, not everybody has always been able to collateralize their home and their living situation. There's been, racial injustices and privilege that has allowed the few to be able to own homes, and the majority of people don't. But right. I see what you're saying. Like, you're saying that there's a history of this, and
we just want the same things that are available outside of crypto to be available inside of the crypto world. That's all.
I think that
too much to ask.
I mean, yeah, it sounds really cool. And I really think that the best part of our made up internet money being better than the government's made up internet money is that ours is continuing to evolve with projects like yours.
Yeah, this we think that this is revolutionary.
Hell yeah. Well, yeah, it's definitely good stuff, and I encourage people to do your own research. As you can tell, I'm learning and asking questions myself, and it's everybody has to do your own research and take your own risks and learn about things yourself. But this has been very helpful for me to understand some of my suspicions about how it is similar to these other mechanisms that I think I'm more familiar with in terms of stop loss order and targeted liquidity, even wrapping coins on certain protocols and liquidity pools, creating support, tax protocols, allowing loans to get special treatment as non-income, even when it's used in certain ways. So yeah, it's great. Now, what's the catch?
Well, the catch is we have to have PulseChain here first, right? So at the earliest, we've heard December, and then we hear, it could be as late as February or March, right? There's, which is fine, right? By the way, people are getting stir crazy. Testnet just recently came out, so be patient, everyone. It's well worth the wait. But we need to have PulseChain here. We want to get through some initial volatility, because while it would be great to assume that everybody, whoever uses PulseChain, would use this protocol so that the price never dumps, it's highly unlikely, right? The people are still going to use PulseSwap or the Uniswap fork or whatever it is, and there's likely to be some sort of major correction, like most launches have some sort of major correction as the price goes really high and then it dumps down. There's no time lock on, there's no vesting period on PulseCoin. So when people realize they have, I have a 3x of what I believe this should be worth, or, wow, I have a 10x, people are going to take profits. We want to get through a lot of that initial volatility just so we don't see people set their collateral levels at a level they think is safe, and then oops, the price dumped 50%, and maybe they got liquidated and they didn't have to. Once we make it through that initial volatility, yes, we're going to go live with this. But
it's very responsible of you.
During that time, though, people are going to be banging down our door because we have a stable coin that functions, that's native to the blockchain, that maybe people want or need. So we have to weigh that very carefully. We're not just going to introduce a stable coin and have people get wrecked or liquidated just because people need a stable coin. Okay, we can live without a stable coin for a month.
I agree. Yeah. You know, it's better to be responsible in launching something and to see how the market plays out, because price discovery, you know, it can be a very brutal force, especially when you're playing with collateralization, etc. So,
yeah, the whole idea of this, never sell. The whole idea is we don't like it when people sell Hex. We also will not like it when people sell their Pulse, unless we're trying to get it at a good price, right? But if you're already holding a bag of Pulse, I'm sure you cringe a little bit when a whale comes along and sells a big bag of Pulse. That's going to happen. This provides other ways for people to extract value, still retain their original cryptocurrency, and never sell the price of Pulse. Never sell it down. So,
yeah, in the sense that taking a loan at a certain collateralization level is not creating a stop limit or a stop loss to sell at a lower price if that price were to happen.
Well, I explained this on an earlier stream with Corey. The way automated market makers work, like Uniswap, it's like, okay, so draw a circle, everyone, put a line down the middle, and on one side you have one token, and the other side you have maybe the native coin.
You're talking about V2.
Yep, V2. Which is, yes, with V2. And you can't fork, apparently you can't fork V3. So I think PulseSwap is supposed to be V2 anyway, right? Like a V2.
There was a $700,000 buy for Hex today that was routing through so many different protocols in one transaction. It was weaving through V2 and V3 like nobody's business. It's kind of really interesting. I don't know what it means, but I tweeted it, which I rarely look at the blockchain, and the one time I do, it's like it's labeled as a private transaction by Etherscan and as a bot trade, but really I think they were just running a script that was basically providing liquidity and removing it and providing it and removing it through a number of protocols to try to reduce slippage. But I'll have to have other people kind of weigh in on that, because I'm new to understanding how 14 transactions can be combined into one, mostly through liquidity pools, in order to do a market buy of Hex that pumps the price, however many percent, 15% today or something, right, at the peak.
Well, for the average users here, like imagine a liquidity pool circle, right? And on one side you got one token, on the other side you got the coin. So you put in something on one side, you get the pull out of the other side, and vice versa. If you want this thing on the left, you got to put in something on the right. And it ratchets the price up and down for every little increment you buy something. The other side becomes more and more weighted, and they get their value from each other, right? So if you got like whatever's in the pool on one side supplies the value to the token on the other side of the pool. So as you buy something and you're putting in on the one side and just filling up that other side with a big giant market order, every little increment that you're buying gets more and more and more expensive. You're just weighting the price, ratcheting.
You push it against yourself as a function of how much liquidity is available and where that liquidity is pegged.
Now the next guy comes along and he does a buy, or a whole bunch of people are all doing this at the same time, and the price is either dumping or pumping based on what the market, if everybody's selling into these pools, the price has nowhere to go but down, right? Just because it's automatic how those liquidity pools work like that. But what if those same people wanted to extract value and they used to collateralize their same assets? So they just locked up the asset instead of selling it. Instead, they locked it up into a vault and they extracted some value out of that at a safe collateral level where they never get liquidated. That would be ideal.
So that's another liquidity pool pair that then is going to push and pull along with, like how people are using it, right? So
well, get the automated market maker out of the mind for a second and just say, well, what if there's a guy who just wanted to get out, or he wanted to get some money for his groceries or for his car, and he's left with an option to go dump on Uniswap, or wait a minute, why don't I just go lock up some of this Pulse coin into a loan vault and get a loan off of it? The price never dumps. It never goes down. So literally, the more people that use this to extract value, and there are some mechanisms of a stop loss in place, right? If the price turns against them, right, it takes their pulse and gives it to somebody else. That does happen. But even through that, there's no dumping of the price. So you can transfer value, you can extract value, you can do what feels a lot like a sell, but it's not a sell.
It's like an impermanent loss almost on either side, right?
On the other side?
Yeah, so
on the other side is even an impermanent, it's a gain, right? So the stability providers have a bunch of stablecoin, and in the event of a liquidation, they acquire Pulse that happens to be at a good price at that moment in time, but they acquire, let's say, $5,000 worth of Pulse is liquidated. The stability providers acquire $5,000 worth of Pulse. $5,000 worth of stable gets burned. But oh wait, there was a 10% advantage, so maybe they get 5,000, however many $100 for the Pulse. They accumulate a little more Pulse than they do.
Yes.
Stablecoin that was burned. They just had a gain.
Yes.
They just had a gain. But the borrower also had a gain, perhaps, because he didn't have the slippage he would have had he gone to Uniswap.
Yes, the pools, they create a buffer because you don't need a brand new buyer or a brand new seller when people have set that up in advance, right?
It's set up, the whole system's set up in advance. Yep, you've got the stability pool, it's already set up in advance. Those guys are ready to buy Pulse. The borrowers, they're ready to get their value right up in advance. They get their money right up front. And then you just had the Pulse sitting there waiting for the right times to do whatever it's going to do.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out in the wild. And I know that it's already been playing out on other protocols. And so I'm interested to see what it does in this community of strong hands and of people who are, in my opinion, much smarter than average people in Hex, who are delaying gratification, who are investing in things like PulseChain, and who are looking for tax advantages. So I really appreciate you taking the time to explain all this to me. And like you said before, we've got the link to your Telegram here, both for you and for Liquid Loans. And that allows people to benefit from the great group of people that you have answering questions there.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks for your time. Great Telegram, t.me/liquid loans. There's a lot of Easter eggs to come up here in the near future. there's some instructional videos that'll be released. We have a film crew with we'll be doing like 40 different instructional videos, some of them like cartoon graphics, just so people can picture what the pools, like how they work. Yeah, there's a large team behind this, the developer team and then the founders. By the way, I'm not the founder. I'm just one of the team members. But yeah, we're excited to bring this to everybody. And
who's the founder?
Crypto Crazy and Scottish Dave. They're active Hexicans in the community. They've been on a couple streams here and there as well. Both Australians. And then other team members are Abra and Toshi Flow. So there's 5 core team members, and then there's a large development firm that's done all the coding and the forking, and there's some attorneys and some film crews, and then some of the people in the films and stuff. There's a bunch of stuff going on to bring this to everybody, and we're just right here at the beginning. And you all are the first to see this come to PulseChain, and we think it's going to be a big deal. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. And I hope that we'll be able to have you on again next time people have questions or next time there's a big update. Because we want to stay tuned and we want to see how this all goes down. So I appreciate the work that you're doing for everybody. I think it's a huge benefit to the community to have people thinking in the way that you are. And so again, I want to thank you for being on the stream. And I would encourage people to go out there and do your own research, ask as many questions as you can, and stake wisely, my friends. Any other final thoughts here, Jesse?
Yeah, go out and buy some more Hex while it's still significant, while it's still cheap enough. All right. So
that's a good message.
Hex is always going to be the apex, in my opinion. All right. This is just a tool. This is just a tool for people to use, but I will always prefer Hex. Go buy some Hex.
Amen.
Thanks, Maddie.
All right. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time. Good night.